What's the least amount of time you can spend in the gym and still build some serious muscle without drugs? It's a good question. And here's the deal. We may have our goals, but the problem is that for a lot of us, it's really hard to think about spending an hour and a half, 4, 5, 6, sometimes even 7 times a week. Life is busy. There's work, there's family and friends, school sometimes, and responsibilities. And one of the biggest problems is that we're constantly hearing fitness influencers and bodybuilders telling us we need to spend more time in the gym the same way they do. But the problem is, actually, there's two problems. Number one, most of them use drugs. And so a lot of what they say doesn't actually apply to a natural athlete. And number two, very importantly, fitness is their life. Not that many of them have that much of a life outside the gym. And so for the average man or woman, they really shouldn't be the role models you're looking to in terms of how you're putting together your own training routines. The other problem is that bodybuilding is not science or science-based. Completely not. In real science, any scientific protocol, one of the most important aspects is figuring out what's the minimum dose. What's the least amount you can do and get the same effect, which requires a large number of people and also the dedication to trying to really figure out what's the least amount of training you can do and still build significant muscles as a natural athlete long term. Very important. Not some short-term study that lasts like 3 months or 6 weeks. Long term for years on end. And given the fact that the number one reported reason people don't get into the shape that they want to get into is the fact that they don't feel like they have enough time, it is super important to know what the minimum dose is. And today is your lucky day. Because over the past 30 plus years, I have researched meticulously with hundreds of men and women exactly what the answer is to the least amount of time that you can spend training and still get not just good results, but results good enough to compete and hold your own in natural bodybuilding competitions. Information is going to be a game changer for most of you out there. So when it comes to minimalist training and finding out exactly what the minimum dose is for building a truly remarkable natural bodybuilding physique, I'm a bit of an expert. See, here's the deal. I started off at 125 pounds. I was able to realize my goal, becoming a successful natural bodybuilding champion with high-intensity workout that lasts 10, 15, max 20 minutes, just 3 times a week. That's right. I was able to compete successfully as a natural bodybuilder. And perhaps most importantly, I've trained for the past 33 years and I still look like this at 50 years old. But to answer the question of how much time the average person needs to spend in the gym to build a truly impressive natural bodybuilding physique, the answer is anywhere between 9 to 10 minutes. That's right. 9 to 10 minutes is the minimum dose of what I have seen over the past 3 decades plus, training hundreds of men and women. So unlike most fitness influencers out there, none of this falls under the era of small numbers, whereby you're hearing what works for one person. And here's the thing, we have also done workouts that have been as short as 6 to 7 minutes. But the problem is, it's exactly the contrary of what you might think, in that with this type of intensity, training faster makes it much harder, to the point where it's almost unsustainable and impossible to keep on doing it. Whereas 9 to 10 minutes is pretty much the sweet spot for most people, being able to sustainably train and get to a point where they can realize, like I said before, their natural bodybuilding potential. Now, I did say that I train 10, 15, max 20 minutes. But bear in mind, I've been training this way for over 30 years. And what that represents is my conditioning. My ability to be able to train at a high intensity for a longer period of time, which is something that took a very long time to achieve. That being said, for all of my clients, whether they were advanced weightlifters, professional natural bodybuilders, triathletes, or those with tons of experience at the gym, 9 to 10 minutes is the average amount of time that they would train. And bear in mind as well, for my own training, 20 minutes represents the upper limit of what I am able to do. I am barely able to get through a 20-minute workout. And probably the only reason why that happens is because I train here at home, and training at home requires a lot of time setting things up in between exercises. And I almost always train my training partner. But for the most part, when we train all out and everything is all set up, our average workout will last somewhere around 12 minutes. That's right. 2 of us training together takes 12 minutes. Now, the question you're asking is, how is it even possible to do let's say a leg workout in that period of time. So what does a naturally intense 10-minute workout look like? I'll give you a very simple example with legs, bearing in mind that every single workout is different. Start with hamstring curls, do 2 sets to warm up, and your last set, go all out. Then from there, go straight into leg extensions, 2 sets, last set, all out. Then go into either squats or leg press, again, 2 sets, last set, all out, and end with a calf exercise, 3 sets, but every single set, all out. Now, you might ask yourself, how is it even possible to do all those sets within the course of only 9 to 10 minutes? But here's the thing, you're going non-stop and there's no rest whatsoever between your sets, which dramatically increases the intensity. And since muscles get bigger and stronger if they're subjected to a stimulus that they're not accustomed to that creates overload, these non-stop high-intensity workouts produce dramatic muscle growth. And the thing about a 10-minute workout is that when following the principle of naturally intense high-intensity training, the workouts literally have to last anywhere between 9 to 10 minutes. In that, if you're not training at peak intensity, you will be able to train longer. And because there's a drop in the intensity, you're not going to get the same degree of results as someone who's training at peak intensities. As the laws of physics state, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. And so if you can last for more than 10 minutes, it means you're not going all out and you're not training hard enough. Because here's the thing. Following a full routine, you cannot physically last longer than 10 minutes unless you've been doing it like me for a decade. Now, here's the thing. A 9 to 10 minute workout may sound like a lazy approach to fitness. And you're probably used to hearing all those fitness influencers and bodybuilders talking about you got to spend more time in the gym. But here's the deal. This is not for the lazy, because these, if done correctly, have to be the hardest workouts you ever do in your entire life. And every time you train, you're always trying to top your last workout and go even harder. I can't begin to explain exactly what that type of intensity looks like and feels like. In that, it is very difficult to do on your own because our natural inclinations are always to take the path of least resistance, which means not going all out. But with this, you have to really dig deep and give it everything you have for optimal results. Here's the thing. In this world, you have so many fitness influencers out there talking about the need to spend more time in the gym, more time training, more time exercising, but it simply doesn't line up. From an evolutionary point of view, understand this. Muscles get bigger and stronger as a result of unaccustomed stimulus that causes an overload. And that muscular adaptation is a holdover from ancestral times as a survival mechanism. In that, our ancestors would do a particular activity that required a certain amount of strain, probably sometimes extreme strain. And in order to be able to continue to do that particular activity, those muscles got bigger and stronger and were continuing with that particular activity required for survival, be it procuring food or fighting for their safety. Those are the ones who survived and passed their genes on to us. But bear in mind, they were not, under any circumstances, spending hours doing a particular activity over and over in order to increase muscle size and strength. There certainly were no gyms in prehistoric times, and by looking at modern hunter-gatherers, we can see clearly that many of them have very well-developed physiques, but don't spend any extended time doing what we consider conventional exercise, which points to the fact that muscular adaptation is getting bigger and stronger due to overload and unaccustomed stimulus. It is something that comes from short bouts of activity, not prolonged bouts of activity. Here's the thing. There are 2 kinds of muscle fibers, fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers. Fast twitch muscle fibers are the muscle fibers that get bigger. It's what you see on people who have really big biceps, really big pecs, whereby slow twitch muscle fibers are more for endurance and they don't get that big. So when you're thinking about increasing muscle size, you're thinking about trying to increase your fast twitch muscle fibers. And they generate high amounts of power in a short amount of time and are easily fatigued. So you can't recruit them for a very long period of time. And as such, short explosive movements are what make them bigger and stronger. And here's the other thing. High volume training doesn't disprove that low volume training works. In fact, it actually underlines the fact that it should work. Because unless you've been like me and dedicated a significant amount of time to training at such a low volume, you'll never know whether or not it was your first couple of sets that was responsible for your muscle growth or not. If you never conduct a controlled experiment to see exactly how long you really need to train to build muscle, you really have no idea whatsoever whether half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, or 2 hours makes any difference whatsoever in terms of your muscle growth. And bear in mind, we live very much in a bit of a monoculture where it tends to be just one particular way of doing things, and people do these things based more or less on faith, not necessarily based on practice and result. And some people will say, well, Kevin, this 10, 12-minute workout, if it's so effective, how come everyone doesn't stop doing high volume training and only do this particular form of training? Which is an interesting question. But bear in mind, most of what we accept today as a result of scientific experiments were not accepted for years and years on end. For example, there was consistent evidence that germ theory existed and that doctors who washed their hands had lower rates of infections with their patients during surgery and or childbirth. And yet, even in the face of showing that lives would be saved and that people were dying needlessly because doctors weren't washing their hands before procedures, there was no sudden rush to change policy because that is the way things were done. When people have something set in their minds to how things are, it can take years, generations even, before it changes. That being said, I hope that this video helps you, especially you people out there who don't have that much time, but you have those dreams, you have those aspirations, you want to put some quality muscle on and you really want to increase your fitness levels, and you say to yourself, there's no way I can do it because I can't commit that time. And you can. My entire life is based on the idea that to whom much is given, much is expected. And I always do my best to share as much as I possibly can to help people along their path. And bear in mind as well that I always say that there are many ways up the mountain. I am in no way, shape, or form saying that everyone should train this particular way.
No.
You have to find your own path. And my mission is simply bringing the information to you. So when you figure out what path you're going to choose, you're doing so with all the information that you need to make the best decisions possible for you. Now, very, very important. Now that you've seen this video on what the minimum dosage, you need to also watch this video here to learn more about naturally intense, high intensity training. And you can also learn more on my website at naturallyintense.net. So thanks so much for tuning in. Know that I believe in you. And as always,